Can I make a deductible IRA contribution? Let's break it down on this episode of the Hawaii Retirement Show. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hawaii Retirement Show. Today's episode is number 54. So we're starting to accumulate quite a bit of evergreen content here on the show, and encourage all the listeners go back and listen to some of the older episodes if you haven't gotten a chance. There's a lot of good evergreen content there to dive into. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about, can I make a deductible IRA contribution? And I'm going to talk through this. For those checking it out on YouTube, you can kind of follow along with the Hawaii Retirement Show flowchart here that I'm going through. And so what we're talking about is not everybody can make a deductible IRA contribution. And when I say deductible IRA contribution, most people know it as a traditional IRA contribution, right? Same terminology, or you could say a tax deductible or a pre-tax contribution. You know, a lot of verbiage that kind of means the same thing there. But let's go through this. Let's start with, do you and your spouse have earned income? Okay, this is the first question you need to ask yourself. And if you do, then you can kind of move on to the next series of questions. If you don't have earned income, then you cannot make an eligible IRA contribution. And this pertains to Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs. You need to have earned income, some form of earned income. There is a spousal sort of a benefit here, whereas if one spouse has earned income, then the other spouse can make contributions to their IRA, as long as the spouse with the earned income has enough income to cover both spouses' contributions there. So that's the first step along the way. Do you have earned income? Okay, next step. Do you make a contribution to a Roth IRA? Now, why this is relevant is the maximum amount you can contribute for a year, right, is for 2024, $7,000. And then there's always the catch-up contribution, which is an extra $1,000 if you're over 50, so you get that $8,000. But those limits pertain to all of your IRA contributions. So if it's a $7,000 limit for 2024 and you contributed $3,000 to your Roth IRA already, and you want to make deductible IRA contributions now to your traditional IRA, well, you've used up $3,000 of your limit, so you only have $4,000 left, right? So it's you can't max it out with the deductible IRA. Okay, so let's say you haven't made any Roth IRA contributions, right? And now the next question you need to ask yourself, or even if you have made Roth IRA contributions, just some, and you haven't maxed it out, the next question to ask yourself is, what is your tax filing status, right? Is it single or married filing jointly? And those are the two I'm going to kind of focus on here. I know there's head of household, right? But what I'm focused on is single or married filing jointly. And reason being is, well, there's two reasons. If you are not an active participant in an employee-sponsored plan, and your spouse is not an active participant in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, then you can make the full deductible contribution for the year, the $7,000 if you're, and an $8,000 catch-up if you're over 50. Now, if you are an active participant in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, again, 401ks, TSPs, 457s, 403bs, those are all employer-sponsored retirement plans. If you are an active participant, that's where this MAGI, the modified adjusted gross income, and your filing status comes in, because there's thresholds to where some contributions might be deductible, and then there's a maximum threshold to where no contributions will be deductible. So let's go through it. If you're a single if you're filing Signal and you are an active participant in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, and let's say your modified adjusted gross income is $87,000 or more, then there's no deduction is allowed. That's the top of the limit. And again, I just want to reiterate, we're talking about MAGI, modified adjusted gross income. So $87,000 or more, if you're single, you cannot make the deductible IRA contributions. Now, moving along, if you make more than $77,000 but less than $87,000, so there's a little window there of that $77,000 to $87,000, you get a partial deduction. Okay, so let's say you contribute $7,000, you might not be able to deduct the full $7,000, but you can deduct part of it. And then lastly, if you make less than $77,000 and you're filing single and you are you're an active participant in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, then you can take the full deduction for your contributions, less than $77,000. Okay, so married filing jointly, again, the question about active participant in employer-sponsored retirement plan pertains to you and then also to your spouse, right? So if neither you or your spouse, you can deduct the full contribution. Now, let's say you or your spouse, let's start off here because the numbers are different for your modified adjusted gross income, whether it's you or your spouse. So let's say you are an active participant in an employer-sponsored retirement plan. If you make less than $123,000, you can deduct the full contribution. The phase-out window is between $123,000 and $143,000. That's when you get the partial deduction. And then $143,000 or more, you get no deduction for. You can't take the deductible IRA contribution. So that is married filing jointly, and you are an active participant in an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Okay, the last scenario is married filing jointly, but you are not an active participant in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, but your spouse is an active participant. Okay, and then the numbers just change, right? So for all these things, we're just talking about the kind of the maximums, the minimums, and then the window where you get partial deductions for your IRA contributions. So again, your spouse is an active participant, and your modified adjusted gross income is $230,000 or less. So your MAGI is $230,000 or less. You can take the full deductible contribution. Okay. The phase-out window is $230,000 to $240,000, and then the upper limit is $240,000. So if your modified adjusted gross income is more than $240,000, in this scenario, no deduction is allowed. So I know it's a lot of moving parts, clear as mud, right? But you just kind of have to follow through and ask yourself these questions, right? Starting off with, do you have earned income? Okay, did you make any other IRA contributions this year, Roth IRA contributions? Because that impacts it. Okay, and then what is your tax filing status, single or married filing jointly? And then if you're married filing jointly, is you or your spouse participating in an active, in an employer-sponsored retirement plan? And then from there, we just look at the modified adjusted gross income for the upper limit, the lower limit, and then there's always this window where a partial deduction is allowed for the modified adjusted gross income. So I'll put this resource up on the website. There's a link to the website in the show notes, and I'll also try to attach a link to the YouTube video. Hopefully that clears up whether or not you can make a deductible IRA contribution. And as always, if there's anything in particular you'd like me to talk about on the show, email it over to aloha@hawaiiretirementshow.com, and we'll catch everyone on the next one.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.